Hello, everybody, and welcome to Horsehead Weekly, Week 2. And we are going to start off strong by just getting right into it. This is what happened last week. We finally played fantasy football. We finally had men fight other men to figure out who was better at picking men. It it worked. We did it. We actually have teams playing each other. It's great. So excited for this. And let's start off, of course, at the top with myself taking on Matt S. And I ended up just squeaking him out. That last game was quite something. We're just sitting there staring at our numbers the whole time. But I ended up just getting by him at the end. Next up, we have Gerald versus Mike, where Gerald ended up taking that one by a decent margin. Same thing with Doug and James. Doug just kind of took it. No offense to really James. Tyler had a little bit of bad luck. Scored decently, over 100 points is good, but he ran into Hunt, and that was just a mess for him. Those 43 points was just absolutely crazy, and he also ended up having a off week for both Brady and Gronk. So expect him to bounce back. Zipping back over to the bottom left corner, we have Matt M and Mac. Malcolm, he went out there and he just put up the highest score of the week, and Matt M almost put up the lowest score, so can't really do much about that. And then finally we have Jess versus Dave, and Dave did not have a good showing in his first ever game, and just ended up putting up the lowest score of the week. Didn't even break 90, and Jess just kind of went out there and hung 113 on him and said, "What are you gonna do about it, kid? Better luck next time. Welcome to the league." Which brings us to the standings, which aren't that interesting. In case you're wondering who would make the playoffs, it's the six people who won. Not a lot going on. There is some interesting stuff here. I might have misspoke earlier because Skullhouse, my division, ended up having everybody win, and the Outsiders ended up having everybody lose. And something else the Outsiders have in condom, huh? Something else that the Outsiders all have in common is they're all got a strike in the Eliminator, and James joined them. So not a good showing for Matt and Dave early on. The brothers and Mike in their division, I guess, just caught whatever they have, and then poor James, he just didn't do that good. At least it was a good clean break. It wasn't anything crazy where like somebody went out and put up 100.3 and Tyler had 100.4. So the four people who got strikes this week definitely deserved it. And we have 2 more weeks before somebody can get eliminated. So I'm sure these four don't want week 4 to be their first week they're out of the eliminator. So I'm sure they'll come back better next week. And but yeah, nothing too interesting happening yet here in the eliminator either. So we're just going to keep on cruising to Waiver Wire Wednesday. So you saw what happened last week and the games and everything. Now let's see what people did to try to right the ship. What did people do to try to get themselves better? And Tyler went out and put up $29 on Tariq Cohen, the Chicago running back who looks like he probably is also going to be playing some wide receiver, because I think at this point by week 5 they're not going to have any on their roster left at the rate they're going. So, but he looked great coming out of the backfield, cutting into Jordan Howard's time, yes, but I'm not worried about Howard. I'll get to that later though. Number 2 ended up going Kerwin Williams at $26. Again, this is like a quarter of people's budgets they're throwing away in the first week. And but this was a little bit too high. Mike put up 26. The next highest was at 16, which meant that was a bit ridiculous. Same with Alvin Kamara going to Nick. Both of these backs are supposed to be, good breakouts potentially. They're supposed to be doing some stuff, but 26 when you only need 17 and 19 when you only need 9. That's those are $10 these two teams aren't going to get back. Now they couldn't have known, but that's just the way that it goes. I ended up just getting beat out by Mike for Chris Carson, and then I ended up also getting beat out on Javoris Allen, 2 players who I thought could be very good, but I was just off by $5 in each of those. Not that bad. Nick, curious about this one. He put up $13 on TJ Watt, who is an edge rusher as well as a linebacker, and later on you're going to see I put up $2 for Terrell Suggs because he's also an edge rusher. We thought edge rushers could play in the D line role. Who knew? I guess they can't. So that's something that I learned today. And then you have everybody else, the people who you kind of expecting to picked up. Your Nelson Aguilar's, Cooper Kupps, Interesting choices by some people, though. Just want to point out Jalen Mills had a great game, but as a cornerback, cornerbacks don't tend to put up a lot of points. It tends to be more safeties because they're in tackles. So it'll be interesting to see how Jalen Mills plays for the rest of the season. I mean, who knows? He could end up being great, but just put $10 on him, so definitely betting a lot on that. And then in other interesting news, Jess again put up $5 on Calais Campbell, who I think is going to have a really big week this week, but long run, is it worth $5? Don't really know because it's hard to tell with these type of players, these DST players. So those are the 24 waivers that got processed on Wednesday. You can take a look at these, find out, how much did I overpay for someone? Did I just get beat? And stuff like that here. And your time's up because we're moving on to how many dollars people have remaining. Waivers did process a couple minutes ago, and I didn't get a chance to update this yet, but these are the waiver numbers as of Wednesday night. So, Dave still yet to spend $1. A couple people spent only a couple bucks. But then you have Mike and Tyler who both went out and bet, almost half of their money so far on players. And Tyler he didn't even keep going. So it's a little bit interesting that he would take him and trade him right away off the bat. But I guess that's the way it works sometimes. You're down to half your budget. Oh, and speaking of trades, our trades. This week there were 7 trades as of recording. So not as many as the last couple weeks where we had, I think it was like almost 20. So this week, just 7 trades. And you can look these over. I feel like a lot of these were pretty decent. I really didn't look at any of these trades and be like, wow, somebody really got taken for a ride. Besides maybe Matt M. I really didn't like the Fournette Macklin for Murray Adams trade. I think Adams just had a bad week. Macklin maybe I don't really think much is going to come of him. For Fournette, he's good, but DeMarco Murray, you have that track record of. Again, I think he just had a bad week against a decent defense. So I'm not really looking at that as being an issue in the future. So I think James really did win that trade a lot. But everything else seems to be pretty even. Nothing too egregious, even though some people would disagree on a couple of trades probably, but that's just how I feel. So now moving on to this week's special segment, the Team Name Game. Each team gets 3 suggestions-ish of a name. Some of them are just going to be god-awful puns. I'm not going to apologize for that. God-awful puns are absolutely fantastic. Maybe there's a dad joke in there. I don't even remember what I did. I made these during a fugue state, in a fever dream a couple days ago. So let's see how this works out. And we're just going to list them in order of teams from the last week's power rankings. So, and that's probably how I'm going to do it for these type of segments here. So let's take a look at what we have, starting with Matt M. We're going to start off with Adams Sanders. Now, it's that funny guy who did Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, right? And then you can even make it better with calling him Mr. Sneed or Mr. Breeze, playing on Mr. Deeds. I think you could have a good time with that because, if you have to make some trades, got to make some work, got to do some work to have some of these. A lot of these you're also going to have to do some work for. They're just I just looked at your team and I said, oh, this is so good. And then I just kind of wrote something down because I was like, oh, if you had this player, this would be really funny. He could also be the valet because he's a car parker. A Galladay with Murray's. I had a joke with that one. I don't remember what it was. Probably enjoyed people in suits that are colorful, that look like animals, but I'm not going to worry about it. And then finally, he is Team Teen Face. Team Teen Face, of course, is the fact that he is got a bunch of breakouts on his team. So he looks like his team looks like the face of a teenager because it's full of breakouts. Got him. Moving on to Matt S. He could be the President of the United States. He's got Jackson, Jefferson, and Benjamin. 3 great presidents, very early presidents that everyone knows and respects. I think that's a good name. He also has Sorry Miss Jackson. Ooh, I am for feeling. And I just think that's just a good time. Who wouldn't love that as their name? I don't know if he has to make moves for this because I didn't put that in, but it's great. And then finally could be the Greenhide Bowman. It's a reference to Fallout for anyone who remembers Fallout 2, I think is where it came from. Not my best, but I'll take it. I really, once I got, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, ooh, I am for Theo, and I just kind of was like, that's my peak. I peaked. Why didn't I put him last? I should have put him last. Should have did power rankings based on how good your team names were and put him last. But hey, there you go. That's just how it works sometimes. Now we got Doug. Doug, you could get Jared Cook and Dalvin Cook, and you could have the other Cook, which you just traded away. You have 0 Cooks right now. You could have went for too many Cooks, based on that wonderful meme from like a year ago. But hey, who knows? Maybe you can do like some Pokemon stuff and just go try to collect them all. Um, God, if we didn't get rid of kickers, we could have Run Theo. It's Mr. Crosby, which is not funny because what he did was wrong. And then finally, you could have house. You could be called the housekeeper because you who cooks and does laundry. Doug does Landry. Landry. I think I want to autocorrect it. Either way, not my best, Doug. You got a tough team. Jess could be OJ Brown Hunter because his wife's last name was Brown, our girlfriend. The lady he killed because he killed her. Let's be real. Let's be real. She could also be called AAA because she's got 3 very, very reliable people in Antonio, Aaron, and Amari, and I think that's pretty good. And then finally, she's got Moncrief Charles Brown, which is a play on Good Grief Charlie Brown. So Jess got some good players, and I had a lot of fun with them. And I think that this is definitely some winners here. I really do like some of these. And we're moving on to Nick, right? Yeah, Nick. Um, of course, Nick made a trade, but I really did like the name of Krog the English major because he hunt, cook, read, and write. Um, which is, basically what I've been told the English majors do all day. So that's fun. Um, he also could have done, it doesn't fit, just get Burkhead. Um, he also, why are all these so dirty? Oh my God, I had 2 real dirty ones right in a row. Sorry, Nick, but that's just how your team works. You could have Luck My Hunt, baby. And you also could have the White or White brothers because they're similar last names. It's a stretch. It's a bit of a stretch. Kind of like the second one would be a bit of a stretch as well. But hey, who knows? Let's see if it works. Next up, we have James, who could have, I don't know if anyone has a hot cousin in the league. You went to high school with them. I'm sure you knew people who had hot cousins. But you could have somebody's cousins, Perkins Tates. Yeah, just have fun with that one. You could also be Eric Berry's Achilles. Some people like to remember those on their team who ended up going down and getting hurt. But that's how it ends up working sometimes, man. Uh, just goes. And then to go on that, you could say my prior DB is Hogan his ankle, because his Achilles again, same thing again. And then finally, you traded away Fournette, I believe, but still, if you can get him back, I think this could be a fun one. How do you catch 4 men? Fournettes. Ha Jokes. These are funny. I hope you're all laughing because I love these. I spent so much time working on these. Next we have Malcolm. Malcolm could have just went out, trades for Drew Brees, and he's Mac and Breeze. Like the stuff in the blue box. Mac and Breeze. It's a good time. Another in the more juvenile humor, he could have I Fart and Tyreek. Ugh, it Tyreek in here after that. Um, wow, that one actually hurt coming out. And he could always go back to Caw! Hey everybody who was listening on speakers or headphones or sleeping, glad to wake you up. Glad you're paying attention now. But yeah, no, it was just he's got Crow. He's got Crow again this year. Next up, we got Dave. First one is a How I Met Your Mother reference, where he's got Mosley, Marshall, and Barnesy. Um, like Barney. It's tough. It's a little tough. I had some. It was tough. Um, to make that one work, but I wanted to. I think he also has to trade for 2 of these people, if not 3. Whatever, Dave. I'm trying. I'm doing my best here. Next up, you got Marvin Jones and me, which is just really simple, and it lets me sing. And I know my singing voice is terrible, and going through this mic it's even worse, but you just have to deal with it. And finally, we have Mount Vernon, Washington's Hill, which I just kind of threw together because I was like, yeah, no, I think these are all players on his team, and they make a cohesive sentence. Um, yeah, as I said, Fever Dream, Fugue State. Not always the best time to come up with really super clever things. Uh, we now have Gerald, who, I mean, Jay Ulio, I mean, that's just the best name in the league. Besides everyone hating on James, it really is just a fantastic name. That's just, that's some good stuff there. Uh, Also, go back to the Adam Sandler theme from before. He has Bobby Boucher's Abdullah Amendola, which I don't know, could be fun. Could be an interesting little take on the Abdullah Oblongata joke. And keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know. Just I had to make a third, and I think you have multiple people with the last name Jones, or there's multiple people named Jones in the league. I don't know. I really kind of put a lot of stock in that second one. So good job, Jerry. Uh, for me, I could have Keenan and Kelsey if I was able to get Keenan Allen. I could get Bryant Wilson and maybe go like lying in bed just like Bryant Wilson did or something along those lines. You know, a little. Was that Weezer? I think that might have been Weezer. Anyways, great song. Look it up if you don't know it. And I could also have Thomas Collins. Want to be a little fancy drinker. Mike's got some lacy Rawls. Yeah, he's got some lacy Rawls. It's panties. The joke's about panties. He also has DJ, who's all right now. I think Tyler put that one in the chat, and I just couldn't help but not do it. It's too good. It's too good. Thank you, chat. Whoever did that. But yeah, he's all right now. And finally, he's macking on them girlies. Mm-hmm. You get it, Mike. You get it. You do you out there, and you mac on them girlies, and you get you some. Don't know if he has. I don't think he has girly, but I think he has Cleo Mac. So just go get girly. Make that your team name. It's great. Honestly, if I don't see trades like crazy after this, people just trying to make their team names better, I'm just going to be upset, really, honestly, to truth. That's just going to be a disgrace to the league if you guys aren't trading like crazy, trying to get yourselves the best team names you can. And finally, we have Tyler, whose name could be 3 and 28, as a little bit of a reference to the Patriots Super Bowl, which I hate. He could be Gordon Freeman, everyone's favorite little mute with a crowbar. He also could have a $29 Golden Tate. Hey, that's whatever does it for you, Tyler. If you need to pay $29 to get a Golden Tate for it to work for you, then that's what you have to do sometimes. And finally, he could be sipping on gin and juice. Is there anything for late? No, I don't think he can do anything after that. But yeah, no, he could trade for Jarvis Landry and be like sipping on gin and juice. I think that'd just be fun. That would be a good time. I think that'd just be a good time. And that brings us to this week's rankings. This is the Pokemon edition, and in case you need a refresher, as I said, it's the mascot for your tier is going to tell you a lot about who you are for the first couple weeks. Maybe later on I'll get into more of like a regular tier or something like that if I ended up like losing my like rhythm with this or something like that. I don't know, but I think for now I'm going to keep going with stuff like this. And the first tier is Nurse Joy, and yes, you can guess who is in this tier. It's Mike. Last week he was number 2, and then he lost DJ. It means he's back on that garbage rocket, and if he wants to win this league, he's got to do it without the number 1 overall draft pick, but with a top 10 draft pick because he still has Mike Evans, but he gave up a lot to get that. So it's going to be very tough for him, but hey, we'll see how it works out. His team is definitely full of potential to fill in that running back spot, But at the moment, he doesn't really have those oomph of players, and he's got great defensive players. So let's just take a look at what I'm talking about here. Gillislee, he put up 22.5 points last week, but is that a fluke, or was he going to be great again? I mean, he does have New Orleans this week, so I'm assuming he's going to be good. Kerwin Williams, is he going to be the guy who takes over and is like the number one back in Arizona, or is it just going to be a mess of a committee? He's got the Seattle running back, so what's going to happen there? Is Carson going to end up becoming the guy, or are they going to end up still running multiple backs? Is Thomas Rawls, now that he's healthy, is he going to end up doing something? Who really knows? But for now, I think it's just when you look at this team, you see one player that really jumps off the page at you and says, I am great. And then everyone else is just kind of maybes to not good. So, you traded to the farm to get Mike Evans in order to have Evans and Johnson, which would have been a sick team, but it didn't work out for you. So, sorry, Mike. Which brings us to Tier B, the Pseudo-Wudo group, because it's a team that's sort of good. It sort of can do some things. It's pseudo good, and that's Matt M. It's another one-team tier. Last week he was 12, and because of the injuries, he moved up one. And his team is, as I mentioned earlier, with Team Teen Face, it's full of breakouts. It could be a absolutely great team if everyone breaks out, but his players were all not that great last season. Like Derek Carr is his best player from last season. Then he's got two rookies at running back, Devontae Parker, who's always been on the verge of a great season, Emmanuel Sanders, who's, spiky at best, Zach Ertz, who's been on a breakout season for a couple years now, Jeremy Maclin, everyone's like, oh, this is his year in Baltimore. Now that he's there, he's going to be good again. And then his bench is just full of more people like that. I mean, if he ends up hitting on half of these players and they end up becoming like top 15 at their position and Derek Carr's top 5, then you know what? He knocked it out of the park and he totally just rolled the dice and made it there. But for now, I don't see it. And yes, he's had some players that had some good results in the first couple days, but I want to see 2-3 weeks of production from people before I start believing that narrative versus the narrative that has been there for the whole offseason of, they're going to be good and blah, blah, blah. I want to see it. So that's, for now, you're here, but it's only because your team hasn't proved itself yet. Which then brings us to Vape Nation, Vaporeon, because these are some just real cool kids running around with some great teams, doing fun things, making stuff happen. So let's see what these guys look like. And we're going to start off with Doug, who does not move again this week. He's just, the thing with fantasy football is if you don't have great running backs, no matter how great the rest of your team's still going to be a little bit weak because running backs put up a ton of points and they're very consistent. So for now, I'm putting him at 10. But again, he's, as it says here, he's quietly making his team better, acquiring little pieces here and there. He's got, he secretly has assembled a great wide receiver core with Thomas, Bryant, and Watkins. He's got Matt Ryan and Olsen, Kuechly, Hunter, Keanu Neal. Like, these are all people who I think are going to be very good this year. And so you're probably wondering, well, if this guy's got so many great players on his team, Mark, that you love, why is he in 10th? Well, Lamar Miller last year was an RB2 most of the season, and he's got Bilal Powell as the second guy who is good, not great. He's for now, I should say. He's good, not great for now. I think between him, Riddick, and between him and Riddick at least, he's going to find somebody who can plug in week in and week out. But they're going to be running back twos, maybe borderline running back ones. But for now, the rest of his team looks really solid, and I'm really curious to see what he does this upcoming week because his team is, scored a lot of points last week, but at the same time, he's moved some pieces around, and he also had a lot of points from his quarterback, and last week was a very down week for quarterbacks. So we need to see what comes of him next. Now we have Dave. Dave has actually dropped a ton of spots because upon further review and watching his team do some stuff for a little bit, let's just look at the rest of his team. Wrong way. You have Drew Brees, Freeman, and Howard. These are all great. I don't care that their scores were bad last week. These guys are going to be studs at their position. But then Martavis Bryant did very poorly against Cleveland. Delaney Walker, I can't trust. Like, there's just no one else on this team that I look at and I say, oh no, this is a guy here who he can put in, and they'll just start doing great stuff. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. And maybe in a couple weeks, if Luck comes back to make Hilton better, if Court Coleman continues to perform, maybe we'll see some stuff happen. But for now, I had to stick him in the basement because three great players is not a team make. And yeah, that's just where I got to sit for now, buddy. Sorry. This brings us to James, who has the number one and number two running back from 2014, which isn't a great sign because that means they're getting older. But he also has the $29 man, who knows, maybe that could work out for him. And just so you know, James, the Fantasy Pros projections for the season have you finishing a game outside of the playoffs. So, consistency. Uh, and here's his team. And there's Jess, and now here's his team again. Yeah, no, Bell and Murray are great. I think Adams and Pryor are both going to come on, in the next couple games. They're not people who are going to sit down low there. But my issue with him is it's not a sure thing. I mean, Murray's getting old. Pryor's on a new team. Who knows what's going to happen there? I mean, I know Kirk Cousins good, but there's a lot of mouths to feed there for now until like Reed gets hurt and a couple other things shake out, which I think is going to end up happening. Um, but yeah, I mean, you have a lot of good players, but when you look at your bench, it's just a lot of kind of garbage. I'm not a real big fan of any of those players anymore. Like, if anyone watched the New York game, they know that that offense is just going to be abysmal this year. I say after trading for OBJ. But yeah, no. So that's my hot take on James's team. Again, you only have a couple of players who I think are very solid, but then the rest of your team is just a mess. And this brings us to Jess, who's moved up two positions from last week. Her running backs are still a little bit difficult, but she has a excellent core to her team. Her team is set up to make a deep run, but if you don't have those running backs, like I said earlier, it's going to be difficult. However, unlike Doug, who I thought had running backs that couldn't make it happen, she has Jonathan Stewart, who has been looking promising, and she also has CJ Anderson, who I think is another player who this could be a breakout season for. And maybe even LeGarrette Blount will make something happen, but that I'm not really hoping for. So if I was her, I would spend a little bit less on defensive players and a little bit more on running backs, because if you can just fill one or two of those holes with somebody, even if you have to throw a lot of money at them, I think you can definitely have a team that's going to shoot up into that top tier very very easily if you just just get one or two good running backs on your team without having to like make a trade or get rid of any of your players who are very good. But yeah, so that's her. Next we have Nick. Nick moved up two positions. I'm not entirely sure if I like him here because he is. I mean, his team's got a lot of potential on it. He's made some trades. I don't know. Let's just look at the team. Uh, and yeah, it's a lot of good players that I'm not sure if they can sustain. And I guess I don't know what to tell Nick besides you're in the middle this week again because I don't want to buy into 1 week on Kareem Hunt. I don't want to buy, but I also don't want to buy into people like Joe Mixon who had one bad week. I don't want to buy into, you know, all this other stuff going on. I think in 2 weeks, this team, we're going to know how good it is. And right now, I think it's very good, but it could also break the other way, and I'm not entirely sure how to play it right now. So, Nick, there you go. You're sixth. In fifth place, we have Matt S., who shot up from being in 11th. Oh, man. Dad's home, hide the girly, or something along those lines. There's something to be had there. If we could just go back about 10 minutes, just do something with hiding girly. There's a good way you can play with that one, Matt. Good luck with that one. But yeah, his big issue is after a close loss last week, he has two spots he has to fill every single week. That is his wide receiver 2 and his flex. The rest of his team, I think, will be fine. Maybe he might need to make some moves on the waiver wire for someone to replace Cam if Cam doesn't go back to that level he was a couple years ago, but I don't think that's super important right now. But what he did is smart. He said, I have three running backs, two of which I think are going to be very, very good. And I agree, Gurley and Hyde I think are going to be very good this year. So I'm going to load up at wide receiver, which is typically something I frown upon, but with those wide receivers, he can play matchups every week and make sure he's getting wide receiver 2 minimum production every single week. Because these aren't slouches. This is DeSean Jackson, Cooper Kupp, Alshon Jeffrey, Willie Snead when he gets back, Thielen, and Benjamin. And I think his team is set up to make a very deep run this year, depending on how stuff breaks for him. So, you know, good luck to you for the rest of the season because we don't see each other again until the playoffs. But, good luck this season because I think you have a team that has a good core to it and is positioned to do very well because you have depth at the position you're weakest at. And I think that's a good strategy to have. And this brings us to Gerald, Gerald, I didn't trust you with DeAndre Hopkins, but he's back. And I think you're in a very good position as well because you have a lot of depth. And I think this separates, there probably could have been another tier in there. This separates those top 5 teams from the rest of the teams because these are teams that have depth. He's got Ingram, who I know everyone's probably running away from right now. Abdul, who I think everyone's trying to run away from right now. But of those two, you're going to be able to find our RB2 every week. Because Ajayi, I think, is going to be a solid RB1 every single time. Mariota, he put up good numbers last week in a bad game. So that just goes to show you. Nuke, he's got himself a real good situation because he's got a rookie quarterback who is just going to fall in love with him because he can make bad throws into great catches. And, got Bosa and Jones, and I just think you have a great setup for your team. And if you could just maybe find one more running back besides Abdullah, White, and Ingram to kind of rotate through that RB2 position, I think your team's going to be great. But for now, this is where you sit. Which brings us to the final class, the S class, the EVs, because these are people who are working really hard right now to adopt their teams, change their teams as they go along to try to find the best form that it can take. And they've been putting a lot of work in, and it's showing. And this starts off with me. Last week I was number 5. Now I'm in the S class because I have the best team ever, I say, while also putting myself third in the standings. So that's a thing. And here's what my team looks like. I just recently reacquired Dalvin Cook and Odell Beckham. And, my team, I look at my team and I say, this is a solid team. This is a team that can win a championship. And when you look at the bench, I got people like Cobb and Aguilar to shore up my running backs. I got Doug Martin who can come back soon, and that's my bench. Those are decent players. I got Henry in case anything happens to Murray, and then for my starters, they look great. Who knows? Maybe I'm being silly. Maybe my team's gonna end up being trash in the coming weeks, and the Tampa Bay backs aren't going to work out, or Stephon Diggs was a flash in the pan. McCoy's old, so maybe he gets hurt. Russell Wilson still garbage like he was last year instead of being better like everyone thought. Odell Beckham's never really going to get healed from this injury. There's a lot of things that could happen in the coming weeks to my team to make it fall apart, which is why I put myself at third. But I still think that I'm in a really good position right now moving forward to have a team that can just kind of roll over the easier people in the league and get myself to the playoffs, which is, I think, the most important part. This is a team that can get to the playoffs. Can it win the championship? We'll see. But I think this is a team that can definitely make it to the playoffs. And that's the same way I feel about Malcolm. He has a stacked team, and last week he was number 3 because I was like, I'm not sure about Hill. I'm not sure about West. I'm not sure about a couple players on your team. Well, guess what? They broke out for you. They made it work. Matthew Stafford coming out with a big game. You got Zeke, who showed that he's still Zeke. Crowell, he had a tough week, but again, it was against Pittsburgh, so I don't know how much stake you can put into it. And then, Nelson and Hill, West. He went and got Charles Clay, who is the only real option for Tyrod Taylor this year that he's actually has any rapport with. And then he's got J.J. Watt and Ogletree. This is a team. This is a team that's insane. And if Josh Gordon comes back, and says, "Hey everybody, I'm back. I like to play football now," and does what we know he could do, then this team's going to just be insane. And if Chris Johnson comes back and says, "Hey, I want my job back as the lead back in Arizona," then guess what? This is going to be insane. This is going to be a ridiculous team. It's going to be great. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I couldn't put him ahead of Tyler, who again is the number one for another week. Still the best team. I'm a little bit surprised by Lynch though. I did not expect him to be able to put up almost 10 points in his first week back, especially away from home. But now, I mean, I gotta play this. I gotta play this guy this week. He's got a freaking New England stack and a LAC stack, so we can go Chargers or Patriots any given week, and just if they have a great matchup, just stack them up. This week, the better matchups with New Orleans. So I mean, can't blame him. He's got Lynch in as a running back against me, who's playing the Jets. Like, if you just look at this team, this team's just great. I love it. Um, I just think this is the best team in the league right now, just because it has studs at every single spot on the starting lineup. Like Ty Montgomery, I think is going to be great this year, especially in this half PPR format. I don't know. I just think this is going to be absolutely great. So there we go. That's it. And now we get into the game of the week. And as you might have been able to tell if you've been looking at the who's playing who this week, it's myself and Tyler. I couldn't pick another team because these are two people in that top tier. When I look at my team and I look at his team, they're both full of great players who could end up doing like this could be this could be a 300-point game between the two of us. I would be a little bit surprised if it happened, but I wouldn't be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe 300 points in a single game." No, I think this is a very good matchup here, and this is going to be the game to watch because it's also going to go a long way towards, the playoffs in the future. Because here you have myself and Tyler. I'm 1-0. He's 0-1. 2 losses to start the season for Tyler could be a hole that he's working real hard to dig himself out of. I start 2-0. Meanwhile, I'm a little bit ahead of everybody, and I got a little bit of breathing room. Now flip it back the other way. You have myself and Tyler both at 1-1. It's kind of like a reset to start the third week of the season. So a lot going on here, a lot at stake here, and this could be a matchup that, even though they're not in the same division, I wouldn't be surprised to see it later on. Because this is, again, I don't know if I mentioned this so far, this is a rematch of last year's championship game. So there's just a lot here. There is no way I was picking a different matchup. So let's see how it works this week. Let's see if Dalvin Cook is his silver bullet, or if he can just kind of throw together his team, pick the stack playing New Orleans this week, and just run me over. And you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but I think this is going to be a great match to watch with a lot of implications going forward. And that's it. So good luck this week to everybody. I think everyone, has some great teams, some great stuff going on, and we will see you next week. Adios and goodbye.